What's up, guys? And we are back this time with camera composition, and boy, you are in for a treat. Today's lesson is actually pretty fun, believe it or not. This is where we get to start composing shots, composing shots. What does that even mean? Well, how do you frame a shot? Where should we place people? Where should we place objects? Are there rules? Of course there are rules. There's always rules. All rules are meant to be broken. Until you know why they're meant to be broken, you should not break them. Let's move forward. We got some great stuff coming up. Take a look. All right. If you learn nothing else when it comes to composition, if you tune out everything else I say, at least listen to this very first slide, and that slide is the rule of thirds. It's so important it gets its own rule. It's called the rule of thirds. And essentially, what it says is that the rule of thirds is a guide in which to properly compose a subject. Divide your frame into 3 sections, 9 equal squares. It's a tic-tac-toe grid. Pretty easy. You guys have probably already played that game. By the way, I'm undefeated, never lost. Pretty amazing at it. Let's digress. The eyes, this is the most important part. The eyes should always fall in the upper thirds. As long as you follow this rule, you're probably going to be 60%, 70%, I'm going to say 70. It's a weird number. I don't know. It's a statistic, whatever. 70% of the time, you're going to be correct in your composition if you follow this rule. The eyes should always fall in the upper thirds. But wait, there's more. There is? Yes, there is. So next, we always compose our subject on intersections. Let's take a look. Never center your subject. It's boring. Okay? Frame your subject on intersections. Either frame heavy right or frame heavy left. What does that mean? Well, let's go back. So right here, let's pull out my drawing tool, and I'm going to estimate right, right here is an intersection. And then we also have another intersection right here. Okay, so those are intersections. So we want to center our subject. So if it's a person's face, we want to put the center of their face on one of those intersections. Pretty easy, right? And we also want to make sure our eyes are always in the upper thirds. So we're going to do a few examples here to get this point across. Here we go. So we have a subject here, right? We have a person. They're on an intersection, right? You guys can see this. Here we go. This is the intersection, right? So their face is right here. The center of the face is on an intersection. That looks good. Okay. So now what's wrong with this shot? Right. Very good. The eyes are not in the upper thirds. So if this would have been correct composition, their eyes would have been up here. Instead, we've got their eyes in the middle thirds, and it's unflattering. Why is it unflattering? Well, we'll go over that more later on in this lesson, but for now, just remember, eyes should always be in the upper thirds, and they should be on an intersection. So we're close. We're halfway there, but not quite where we want to be. Let's move on. How about this shot? All right. Are they exactly on an intersection? It's a statue, obviously. But are they exactly on an intersection? No. Are they pretty close? Yes, you can get away with a lot. Are the eyes in the upper thirds? Yes. So this would be correct composition. We can still have a wide shot, right? Why do we not want to center our subject? Well, it's boring, right? We want to create interesting depth and dynamic. We want to create worlds where they can look. So this is an interesting shot. I would argue that not necessarily the subject is the statue, but the background, the overlook is the subject matter, and we just have a person there. Okay, let's move on. How about this one? Okay, so my thoughts are, yes, we can get away with a little bit of it not being quite on the intersection. I think this is a little bit too much, right? She's starting to creep out of the frame. I don't necessarily like that, so it's a little bit too framed heavy, right? But that's just being nitpicky. But the big thing, obviously, is what? Yes, that is correct. The eyes are not in the upper thirds. They are, in fact, in the middle thirds. And we always want to keep our eyes in the upper thirds. So make sure that we are following that rule. Eyes in the upper thirds. So important. All right, so now we're going to take away the tic-tac-toe grid, and this time I want you to envision it and tell me, is this correct composition? Here we go. All right, imagine the tic-tac-toe grid. Imagine it. Is this correct composition? I think so. So let's see. We should have probably a line. Whoa, not there. Probably a line here, right? We should probably have a line around here. That's a little off, but you guys get the idea. We probably have a line, I'm gonna guess here. It's hard to draw on this screen. Come on. There we go. Way off. Forget it. You guys get the idea. The tic-tac, yes, her eyes are in the upper thirds. This is correct composition. Okay, let's move forward. All right, framing dominance. So everything done in a movie is done purposefully. Are there accidents? Yes. But I'd say 90% of the time, things done in movies are done purposefully, and framing dominance is one of those things. So framing a subject has an impact on how they are perceived. Okay, we as humans read from top to bottom, left to right. Right? So if you look at it as a book, the very last thing that you would see is the very bottom word on the right page, right? The very first thing you would see is on the top left. So just think of that in terms of importance. A subject that is framed left is viewed as powerful, superior, can be evil. A subject that is framed right is typically viewed as weak, inferior, or good. So with that in mind, if a subject is framed top left, they are very, very, very powerful. If a subject is framed bottom right, they are very, very weak and inferior. Okay, so we can do that purposefully. Let's take a look at this. We're going to see a shot here in a second. If you've never seen the movie, that's great. If you have seen the movie, you'll probably have an idea of what's going on. But if you've never seen the movie, we're going to flip to this slide, and I want you to just, first thing you see, tell me who is the stronger character at this time. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Who's the stronger character? Very interesting. This is a very, very interesting still shot. So, throughout history, what color is typically perceived as a very evil color? Black, right. So what color has typically been perceived as good? White, right? So we have this contrasting of colors going on first off. So if you know nothing about this, it's Batman and Bane. Batman is dressed in all black, but he is actually the good guy. Bane is primarily white due to his skin tones, and he is perceived as the bad guy. So we have a flip of colors here that they chose to do. Could they have shot this scene where Batman was on the left and Bane was on the right? Absolutely, but they chose to do this for a specific reason. Now, framing dominance, here we go. They're in the middle of this fight, right? So we know that the person on the left is typically perceived as powerful, while the person on the right is typically perceived as weaker. But I want you to see something very interesting. I'm going to see if I can draw this. Oh, I think I got it. All right, here we go. Right, so it's pretty much, it's dead center. Is any particular character outmatching the other one at this time. No, because if you look, their hands are locked almost dead center of the frame, right? So in the previous scene, Bane actually defeats Batman pretty viciously, breaks his back, right? But this is like the rematch, and we see that this composition is showing that they are very evenly matched at this time. Very fascinating that they decided to do this. All right, let's take a look at another one. So we're about to see another shot. Again, I want you to, the very first thing you think of when you see this, just tell me who is the stronger character. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, very interesting framing. Again, everything is done very purposefully. We have Maximus, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. So the person over here is Maximus Decimus Aurelius. And then we have, I can't remember Joaquin Phoenix's character's name. Sorry, I don't remember. But we have two characters, right? The character on the left is dressed predominantly in white, right? And the person on the right is in a darker tone. So we have contrasting colors again. The person on the left is dressed in white because he's trying to actually conceal that he's an evil person. So he dresses in white to appear innocent in front of all of his people. So he's actually hiding something. But we have, again, that's almost a dead split on the framing, isn't it? Let's see if I can draw this. Again, I don't have, oh, pretty close. Almost an even split. But remember, framing dominance. We go left to right, top to bottom. Who is slightly above? The person slightly above, right here, is him, right? He's slightly taller than him. So we know that even though this guy is chained up, you can kind of see it over here. This guy is chained up. Even though he's chained up, he is still a dominant person. Now that's kind of neat, right? And we have something else. You'll notice that he is the person on the right is positioned in a very specific way. That's right. He's positioned in the way Christ was positioned on the crucifix or the cross, right? So this is kind of symbolism. Spoiler alert, if you don't want to hear what's about to happen, cover your ears for the next 15 seconds. I'll give you time. Okay, for all those still listening, so he is actually about to be sacrificed for the people, just like Christ was, and so this is a direct correlation in symbolism with him being bound like he is about to be bound on the cross. Kind of neat. Again, all right, all those, welcome back. Again, very neat that they have chosen this composition. Everything is done purposefully at this level, right? Let's move forward. Okay, depth in frame. So create interesting dimensions within the frame by incorporating foreground, middle ground, and background. What does that mean? Well, we don't want these two-dimensional images. You'll see this when people first start out, right? They'll put their subject matter right next to a wall. And what it does is it flattens the image and it looks like a picture. Even though it's video, it looks like you just took a picture of it. So the easy way to fix this is to incorporate dimensions. And there's three dimensions. There's the foreground, which is the subject matter closest to the camera. Midground, which is the subject matter between the foreground and background. And then you have your background, which is the subject matter farthest away from camera. Okay? And again, let's see some examples. All right. Very interesting shot, because there's a lot of depth going on. Okay, so let me show you. Right here, let's pull out my handy tools. Right here, gosh, it's so hard to draw with this thing. Right here? Nope. Right here. Okay, you get the idea. So we've got this fence, right? Which is a leading line, which we'll get into a little bit later. But we have this fence, which is our foreground. Okay, let's see if I can nail this. Here we go. I'm going to say right here. We have these turbines, which is our midground. And then the background is all of the sky back here. So we have 3 different dimensions. Very interesting. Right? Would we have the same effect if we just turn the camera? Imagine you're the camera right now. And we turn the camera 45 degrees and we shot the fence where it was very flat, right? So the fence is no longer like this. Sorry. The fence is no longer like this. Instead, we've moved to where the fence is now just a straight line across. And then we have our turbines. Would that have the same effect? Not near as much, right? It's not as interesting. This is a very interesting visual where we have foreground, midground, and background. So make sure that you incorporate that. Now, we can also use this to our advantage to make people see what we want them to see. Let me show you an example. So we're about to see another still from a movie. On the count of 3, I want you to tell me the very first thing you see. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Pretty easy, right? Very easy to spot what is the first thing you see without hesitation. I'm going to try and do this. My circle tool out here. I'm going to guess right here. Gosh, so close. So close. Closer. Close enough. So, the very first thing you see is Salt. I think her name's Salt. I want to say that. I think the movie's titled Salt, so I'm going to go with that. But Angelina Jolie, very first thing you see. And why is that? Well, a couple of reasons. So, number 1, everything surrounding her, everything, is darker. Her skin tones pop out more than anything else other than the shirt behind her. So we're automatically, as viewers, we're automatically drawn to the brightest area on the screen immediately. But we also have this foreground, which is all these people in front. Right? We have the foreground. The midground is her, and then we have the background. Everybody's wearing black. But she has a very bright skin tone. So we can use foreground, midground, background, and colors to draw your eye to a specific area of the screen. So use that technique. We want to create worlds, but at the same time, we want people to see what we want them to see. So use that to your advantage. All right, moving forward. Tilt. This is probably the thing that is most misused vocab-wise. Let me tell you why. So, a tilt is the technique used to move the camera across the y-axis. Remember, you didn't think you were going to get math today, did you? Well, you are. Surprise. So let's say, here you go, we have our y-axis. You also have an x-axis, right? So anything that is moving across the y-axis, that can go down or it can go up, right? So up or down on the y-axis, that is a tilt. So if we tilt, you can tilt up. The vocab misused is when people say, can you tilt left? Is it possible to tilt left? No, it is not possible to tilt left. That is impossible to do because a tilt is only on the y-axis. There's different terminology that you could use. You could say, can you dolly left? Can you truck left? Sure, you can certainly do that, but you cannot tilt left or right. You can only tilt up or down. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, we also have a pan. Again, very miscommonly used. This is when the camera it moves across the x-axis. Okay, so you can pan right. You can pan left. Can you pan up? No, I'd probably hear this more than anything else. Pan down real quick. Well, I can't pan down. Right? You can tilt down, but you cannot pan down. So please don't get those terms confused or misuse them. Moving forward, again, composition. You can make people feel emotions. We talked about this a long time ago with Alfred Hitchcock, how he always, during interviews, he makes sure that the camera is slightly above him. Why is that? Well, any angle in which the camera is placed above the subject or, quote, talent eyes, I don't know why I'm doing air quotes, you can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes, talent's eyes, can create emotion and feeling of small, inferior, or innocent. So Alfred Hitchcock, the master of horror, always places the camera slightly above him to make himself look very innocent and a frail old man. When in reality, he's the master of horror. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, a very good movie. This is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? We got George Clooney here, and sorry, I don't know the guy on the left, but you'll notice that the camera is above them, and as a viewer, if you've never seen this, this is a great example, but as a viewer, how do you feel? How do you feel towards the characters? Do you feel sympathetic? Do you feel sad? Right? Do you see how we can twist this to make people feel emotions? Right? So very fascinating shot. Now we have the other end of the spectrum, which is a low angle shot. So a low angle shot is any camera placed below the subject or, air quotes, the talent's eyes. And it can create tension or emotions, right? So we have, that can create size, fear, superiority, and power. So this is a very big, larger than life person. For instance, da-da-da, Riddick. If you don't know who Riddick is, do yourself a favor and go watch Riddick, or I believe it's the Chronicles of Riddick, and then there was another one. Pitch Black was the first, Chronicles of Riddick, and then I think the third one is just called Riddick. But go watch those. I want to be him, right? Vin Diesel, his very first film, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I'm almost positive his first film was called Pitch Black. And it's where he battled aliens on a planet, and then he kind of did a bunch of spin-offs with Riddick, the Chronicles of Riddick. He was in Saving Private Ryan, if you didn't know that. And then obviously the Fast and the Furious, but he was known first for being Riddick, who was a total BA. I don't know if I can say BA on a live stream, but he was a BA. That's what he was. But notice this. How have they framed him? They framed him at a low angle. Why? Well, if you use a combination of techniques such as a wide angle lens and a low angle, it makes you appear very large. Okay, so I don't know if you know Vin Diesel. I don't personally know Vin Diesel, but don't quote me on this. You can look it up. I'm almost positive Vin Diesel is actually pretty short. I want to say below 5'10". I'm going to say 5'8". Let's just go with 5'8", which, if you look at him on screen, he appears very large, right? And they use these techniques. Low angle shots. The Rocky movies. Please tell me you all have seen Rocky Balboa. Well, again, Sylvester Stallone is very small. Again, I'm going to say this time like 5'6". He's a tiny guy. Very muscular, but he's tiny. Now, all of the Rocky movies were shot at low angles. Oh, makes him look larger. Sylvester Stallone is so small that in the very first Rocky movie, Rocky Balboa, he did this scene where he was training, and the scene says that he was going to be running through the streets, and a bunch of children were going to join him as he's like sprinting, and you got the music playing, the montage, and the kids are like, yeah, and they're chasing after him, right? Well, when they got to do this scene, they realized that all the children they had recruited to chase behind him were almost taller than him, right? Problem, because now he's not larger than life. So what did they have to do? Well, they had to recruit like 5-year-olds to chase Sylvester Stallone through the city streets of Philadelphia, which was pretty funny. But you'll never notice that. Okay, so things you can do. Another example, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is one of the shortest actors in Hollywood, if you did not know that. I think he's 5'7". But in all of his Mission Impossible movies, again, he appears very, very large. Part of that is low angles. You can shoot low angles. But the other part of that is set design and production design. What is the average height of a door frame? Anybody? Average height. Let's just say, what is the height of a door frame? If you walk through a door, how tall is the door? 6'7". How do I know that? Because I cleared the door by 1 inch. So 6'7" is the height of a door. Now, if you have Tom Cruise walk through that door, he looks pretty small. He's only 5'7". There's a whole foot where he walks through, right? So what do they do as production design and set designers? Well, they do this trick that's very neat. They build all the sets 1 foot smaller than it should be. So the door frames in all of Tom Cruise's sets are now built to be 5 foot 7 inches. That way, when Tom Cruise walks through a set, walks through a door frame, he actually has to kind of duck to get through the door frame. He now looks massive, right? Another trick, most of the actresses that Tom Cruise works with are taller. So that doesn't look very flattering when he goes in for the hero shot and he kisses her. Because she's taller, he has to actually stand on his toes. Very odd. So what do? They have him stand on a box, right? So you get the wide shot where he's walking up to her. You cut to the close-up where he's already standing on a box, and now he's the same size, if not slightly taller, and they do the kiss scene, right? So you can do all these tricks with composition, concealing things. Very fascinating industry. Let's move forward. Headroom. So this is a term used to describe the amount of space in which the subject has from the top of the frame to the top of the subject. Okay, this can become very troublesome, and I'll show you why. Too much headroom creates what we call dead room or tension, suspense. Too little headroom creates uneasiness and a claustrophobic feel. You want to give just enough room for your subject to move freely. So let's take a look at this. Here we go. Oh, gosh. This one hurts me. Right, so this is clearly too much headroom. So again, I'm going to have trouble drawing this, but that's my arrow tool. Let's change it back to this one. Here we go. So here's the top of the head, right? And here is the top of the frame, right around here. Look at all this space in between. Way too much space. So as a viewer, I'm actually waiting for something to happen, right? There's so much dead space, I'm waiting for something to happen. I'm waiting for Spider-Man to come down upside down, and they do that kiss scene from Spider-Man 1 with Tobey Maguire, right? That's what I'm waiting to happen. Because think of it like in the horror movies. It's a dark room. It's storming outside. The girl walks into the kitchen. They frame it very odd as she opens the refrigerator door, right? And then what are you expecting as an audience? When she closes it, the killer's going to be there, right? We've been trained subconsciously to think like that. So too much space leaves the uneasiness, the tension, like something is about to happen. Something is about to fall from the top of the frame. So we want to make sure we don't have too much headroom. Here you go. Too little headroom, right? His head's literally out of the frame. And what does this do? Well, it creates the claustrophobic feel. I actually want to look away from this image. There's too little headroom. I feel like I'm trapped in a small box with this person, so I want to get away. Could you use this to your advantage? Absolutely. You certainly could. But if you do it on accident, this can cause a detrimental effect to the audience where they don't want to look at the screen. So be careful. How about this one? Perfect jawline, soft lips, great hair, great hair. Man, that's great hair. This is the correct amount of headroom. Do you see how there's just enough space at the top of the frame for his head to move around freely? So that's what we're shooting for, the correct headroom. Now let's take a look at one that I deem questionable. Is this the correct headroom? You be the judge. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Who is it, number one? That's right, Taylor Swift. No, that's not true at all. That's Jennifer Lopez. So is this the correct headroom? I'll give you time to think about it. The answer is yes. I'm going to guess 60% of you said no. Now, remember the definition of headroom. Headroom is the correct amount of space between the subject and the top of the frame. The subject. So the subject in this shot was this person. The subject in this shot was this person. The subject in this shot was this person. The subject in this shot is what? Her eyes. So this is probably a commercial or a print for some type of eyeliner or mascara or something. I don't know the terminology. You girls help me out on this, but it was probably some type of promotional piece for her eyes. So is this the correct headroom for her eyes on the top of the frame? And the answer is yes. Now remember, you're not going to be shooting people all the time. Maybe you shoot a dog. Maybe you're shooting an apple. Maybe you're shooting a water bottle, right? So there's a bunch of different things. What is your subject? That's going to dictate what has the correct headroom. Let's move forward. Depth of field, you're not going to mess a whole lot with this until you get into the advanced classes, the advanced stages, but I'll go ahead and define it for you so you can understand it. Depth of field is defined as the area of acceptable focus. And it's determined by several different factors: emotion, director of photography's vision, the script, but it's classified into two different categories: shallow and large. Shallow and large. So here we go. The first shot. This is a very shallow depth of field. And how do I know that? Well, look at the background. The background is very out of focus. And better yet, what is the area of focus? What's in focus right now in this shot? I know he is, but more specifically, what? And I'm going to say, if I could actually draw it, I'm not going to be able to, but if I could, I'm going to say that eye is in focus. Okay, everything else is out of focus. Look at his left ear. Look at the left ear. It's actually starting to go out of focus, right? So this is very shallow. What is the background? We're assuming it's like some trees. It could be a bush. There's no real telling. That's how out of focus it is. So it's a very, very shallow depth of field. Now let's look at the opposite one. Large. Do you see the difference how everything is in focus in this shot? Like it starts to get out of focus with the clouds in the background, but everything else is in focus. You have this one, everything's out of focus. This one, everything's in focus. How about this one? Again, a very large depth of field. Everything's in focus. So why do we do this? Well, number one, to draw our viewers to see what we want them to see. Some people call it cinematic, like if you go to the movies, you probably won't have a depth of field this extreme, but you'll have a very shallow depth of field. Large depth of field, this is typically broadcast. They'll have a large depth of field just because they're not trying to conceal anything. They're trying to show everything in broadcast. They're not hiding anything. Okay, so there's different uses. Leading lines, this is probably my favorite aspect to cover because you can do so many unique things. Leading lines are lines, or air quotes, vectors that draw the audience's eyes towards a specific area in the frame. Typically they're straight lines, but they can also be curved. They can even be any type of line, including light or even looks, which we call looking lines. And we're going to obviously see some examples here. So these are very cool. We use these lines in the frame to draw our audience's eyes to specific objects. So we're going to look at this first slide. And on the count of 3, I want you to tell me the very first thing you see. Ready? 1, 2, 3. This one's like 50-50. Some people say that they see this. Right? Some people say they see down here. Okay? Regardless of what you saw, your eye was drawn to a very specific point in the screen. And why was that? Well, you've got these lines right here on the dock. These wooden rails are drawing your eyes. You see how they're vectors or lines? They're actual lines within the frame. So these lines can draw your eye to a specific area. Mine was the end of the dock, by the way. All right, here we go. Next one. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ooh. Where'd you look? Some people say up here. I, however, looked down here. Okay, so you have this line, again, this curve that is drawing your eye to a specific area. Where did it go? Did you look at the top of the frame? I looked at the bottom because of the contrast. So again, using light and color can draw your eye to specific areas, but it's a leading line. These lines lead your eye to specific areas. Let's look at the next one. Oh my gosh. This one has so many leading lines. What's the first thing you saw? Probably the glasses for me. What are those? Glasses? Goggles? I don't know what those are. Running mat? I don't know what it is. But you have a lot of leading lines. Let's see if I can nail them all. So you've got the arm right here. You've got this line up here, right? You've got his legs right here and right here. You've got another arm right there. You've got another line over here, right? All of this is drawing you to a centered area on the screen, which is like right here. Okay? So all these lines are pushing your focus into that specific area. Very neat. And how about this one? Aw. Obviously, we have the arrow drawing your eyes to the eyes. So you can use that as a leading line. The arm is a natural leading line. Now, what we're going to look at now is a video from Michel Gondry. Now, Michel Gondry is a genius. I call him a cinematic magician. Scratch that. Let's call him a cinematic wizard, because he has pioneered techniques using leading lines to create optical illusions in camera. If you don't know who Michel Gondry is, he did Eternal Sunshine from the Spotless Mind. He also did Donnie Darko, as well as several music videos. But what he is known for is using optical illusions on screen. What you're about to see is not a special effect. This is in real life. So we're just going to watch the video first and see if we can spot how he did. Actually, we're just going to watch the video first to enjoy it. So take a look at Michel Gondry.
To be original.
Okay, so you are witnessing a special effect done directly in cameras. Basically, this special effect is meant to help the audience to understand how Joel Barish feels when he's a kid, so he's under the table. Hey! So, I am in my dimension, in my size, and now I want to reach his dimension, which is half of mine. So I just basically have to walk and join him. Hey, how's it going?
You want to be around people with ideas. Ideas and guts. That's the key to everything, is just keep coming with the ideas. Some of them work, some of them don't, but you're not sitting there just going, how can we imitate what we've seen before?
What in the heck? How did he do this? So he's using leading lines, vectors, and some production design, some set design to create an optical illusion. So watch as he walks, he actually gets smaller as he walks down. How? Any ideas? Well, first off, the table is actually on a tilt. So it's higher over here on this end, right? So it's actually tilted slightly. That is why you get this roll when he rolls the, what is it, an orange or an apple? I don't know. So he rolls it so you can actually see that it is on a tilt. Also, everything else, probably right about here, is built at a larger scale. So if he wanted to be a fifth of the normal size of a human, he built everything 5 times larger, which is why you have this optical illusion. So the refrigerator is 5 times the normal size, and you get these giant objects where he can walk down. So it is cheating, using camera angles, using leading lines to create these optical illusions. Again, Michel Gondry. If you do not know who he is or have never seen anything from him, please go look him up. Very fascinating dude. All right, horizon line. So the horizon line should be completely horizontal, 180 degrees. It balances the frame. This prevents the frame from being tilted or obscured. That way you don't have to tilt your head to watch in a movie. Very first thing you do when you set up a tripod, very first thing, balance the tripod. Why do we do that? So our horizon line is correct. If you did not balance the horizon line, think of it this way, your shot may be tilted slightly, right? So you'd have like this. Imagine the house being over here, or the dock. You know, you have your dock right here. Let me see if I can put a little, right? See how it can affect it if you don't balance it? So make sure you balance it. Here's another example. And there you go. You can see that the horizon line, even though you might not be able to actually see it, it's right around here. The horizon line is actually 180 degrees, right? Very fascinating that we can automatically balance the tripod. Just use the horizon line, balance it. Make sure your tripod's balanced. First thing you do, set up your tripod and balance it, okay? Fill the frame. We don't want to create dead space. Now remember, we're trying to control what your viewers see. Dead space creates an uneasy feeling. People are expecting it to happen. Remember the shot of the headroom way too much. People are expecting something to happen. It also creates an unbalanced feeling, and it gives the opportunity for the viewer to look around. Let's say you're having this important conversation where dialogue is exchanged and it's pivotal that the viewers understand what's happening, but you leave too much dead space. they could be looking around the screen and not listening, right? So we want to make sure that we fill the frame with no dead space. Here's an example. Terrible shot. It's kind of boring. It's just a bunch of pumpkins. I probably would have done something different. Dropped the camera down, or I don't know. But you get the idea. It's filled with pumpkins. Side note, it took me like 4 years to even realize that right about, oh, there's my, sorry, right around here, there's a wagon wheel. I don't know why it took me so long to understand that, but there it is. So fill the frame. Boring shot, but you get the idea. Here's another one. Some people probably would have shot this really flat. Just shot the looks like he just got a spanking. He got beat. Poor kid. Anyway, here is a shot. We're filling the frame. We've used his shoulder to kind of fill the frame. You're forced to look at his eyes and see this emotion. So fill the frame. Here's a bad example. Do you see all the area? You got this, you've got all of this, you've got this, that you can look around. All that dead space. Maybe you're looking at the leaves in the background, maybe you're looking at the trees, the grass, who knows? But I'm guessing that they were wanting you to look at the dog. That was important to them. Okay? Beautiful shot. They use contrast again. We have black background, very white skin tones, and then we use the red to kind of shield it off. So you're forced to look at the face. Not a whole lot of dead space. Okay, now we're going to go into our last parts, which are our camera movements. And our first type of camera move is called a dolly. Now, a dolly is a type of movement used to incorporate smooth movement. Typically, it's very slight, very subtle, but it can be drastic. I've seen people use it for like cars speeding off, so they have like 3 dolly operators where they like push this dolly at full speed. But it creates emotion and it creates tension. That's a big thing. It creates emotion. So we're going to watch a shot from a very famous movie. The first time we always watch something, we always watch just for fun. So here we go. Let's take a look at this scene right here.
What's the matter, Mama?
I'm dying, Forrest. Come on in, sit down over here.
Why are you dying, Mama?
It's my time. It's just my time. Oh, now. Don't you be afraid, sweetheart. Death is just a part of life. Something we're all destined to do. I didn't know it, but I was destined to be your mama. I did the best I could.
Well, you did good, Mama.
Well, I happen to believe you make your own destiny. You have to do the best with what God gave you.
What's my destiny, Mom?
You're gonna have to figure that out for yourself. Life is a box of chocolates, Forrest. You never know what you're gonna get.
Mama always had a way of explaining things so I could understand them.
I will miss you, Forrest.
She had got the cancer and died on a Tuesday. I bought her a new hat with little flowers on it. And that's all I have to.
Okay, we're going to stop it right there and back it up. I'm going to turn the volume down on this shot so we can just kind of talk about it. So if you don't know anything about this, this is Forrest Gump. Now, Forrest is a mentally challenged adult, but he has this fascinating life probably one of my top 10 movies of all time. Very fascinating story, great acting. But he is the only person that really has ever been nice to him his entire life is his mother. And so he literally ran back home because they said that something was wrong with her. He gets there and she says that she's dying. So now imagine from this perspective that he is literally about to lose the only person in his entire life. So let's break down this scene. Now, you'll see that we have a couple different movements that we've already talked about. We're going to have a tilt here right off the bat. Foreground, we've got forest on the left, midground, and background. Okay, here we go. We're tilting down. Tilt, 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 tilt. There we go, and we're going to set up a shot now. Okay, let's pause it right here. So, why do we have such a wide shot? Why didn't we cut closer? Well, we're just entering this world, right? And we've started off very wide. Now watch what happens. Watch the edge of the frame, specifically. Watch these flowers, and watch this chair over here. Okay. Here we go. So she's going to start talking to him.
Why are you dying, Mama?
It's my time. It's just
And
my
you'll see
time.
we're starting to dolly. Watch how the sides, we're starting to move a little bit
Don't you
closer.
be
What is
afraid,
this doing as a
sweetheart.
viewer? Well, it's building
Death is
emotion.
just a part of
We're now
life.
being drawn into this moment.
Something
All right, now we
we're all
cut.
destined.
All right, here we go. So again, when I tell you to, watch her hair, right? Watch this part of the frame.
To do.
And
I
watch
didn't know it.
his head as well.
But I was destined to be your mama. I did the best I could.
So they're having this very intimate moment.
Well, I happen to believe you make your own
She's trying to put into
destiny.
words what's happening so he
have
can
to do
understand.
the
And
best with
Dolly.
what God
Now
gave
we're
you.
starting to see that he is being drawn out. Dolly, we're starting to see
Let's
her
not this
disappear,
anymore.
right? So we're moving in, we're dollying in,
You're gonna have
right?
to
We
figure
see
that
his
out for
head,
yourself.
we see the edges starting to disappear, and we're
Like the
drawing
box of
in,
chocolates
it's
for us.
drawing in the viewer just to
You never know
her.
what you're gonna get.
So we can
Mama
connect emotionally
always
with
had
her.
a way of explaining things so I could understand them.
I will miss you, Forrest.
And
She
what does
had
that
got
do?
the
Well,
cancer.
at this point in time, Forrest, Tom Hanks, has almost completely disappeared out of the shot. And it's almost as if she's now talking to us. We've formed that connection with this character, very intimate moment, and we have the reverse here.
And died on a
Again,
Tuesday.
she has almost
bought her a
completely
new hat
disappeared, and
with a-
now we're personally connecting with him. We see that emotion on his face. Very powerful if you use the dolly correctly. All right, so we don't use zoom. Zoom is not really a term anymore. Zoom is too broad. So instead we use the terms push and pull. Okay, a push is a zoom in, air quotes, zoom in. It collapses space. It creates very shallow depth of field. A pull is a zoom out, air quotes, and it elongates space, and it creates a larger depth of field. Now you can combine things. For instance, if you do a push-pull, the first term is always used to describe a dolly, and the second term is always used to describe your, air quotes, zoom. So a push-pull is a dolly forward, we're pushing, while zooming out. A pull-push, we're dollying backward while zooming in. A push-push, we're dollying forward while zooming in. And a pull-pull is a dolly backwards while zooming out. Each of these creates a different desired effect. Now, I will go back to our master of horror. Alfred Hitchcock kind of pioneered one of these, which we're going to call a push-pull. Now, this is you're gonna see something very odd happen halfway through this scene. It's a 3-minute clip. We won't play all of it, but we'll play it up to the push-pull and see if you can spot it. So here you go. Watch this legendary shot, which kind of left everybody in shock. Like, how did they do this? Here you go.
Hey, Marty, I know you got a lot of problems downtown, but I've got a couple of problems at the house I wish you could take care of.
One, I've got some cats parking in front of the house. I can't get down to the office, and that garbage truck next to the office has got to be moved.
So what I need is a red zone. It's a simple thing you can take care of. You've done
Honey,
it
would you
before.
come here a minute,
Okay?
please?
Good.
Are you okay?
Everything's fine. Yeah, fine. It's fine.
Listen, if the kids go to the water and it's ruining you,
No.
they can play out here on the beach.
It's all right. Let him go.
It's cold. We know all about you, Chief. You don't go in the water at all, do you?
Some bad hat, Harry.
Chief Brody, you are uptight. Yes. Come on. That's it.
Pippin! 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 Come on, Pippin! Pippin!
Whoa, did we see it? Did you spot it? Let's back it up a little bit here. So what's going to happen is, after we get past this bloody scene, sorry for that, but we're going to dolly in, and at the same time, we're going to zoom out, and you get this, what we call now, the vertigo effect. Very interesting. Let's watch it one more time. You'll see the background do a very weird thing. Right? So that is your vertigo effect. Very neat, and it creates this, like the world, what's happening, the world behind you is kind of slipping away, right? So you can use that, but everything that we went over, very important stuff. If you remember nothing else, hope you remember at least rule of thirds. If you do the rule of thirds, it'll get you a long way. We went into a little bit about film theory and foreground, midground, background, and framing dominance and depth of field, leading lines, filling the frame, lots of different stuff. There's so much that we went over. All of it's very important. I hope you guys incorporate all this into your future projects, and I hope it helped you along the way. Well, that is going to do it for this lecture. I know it was a longer one, and it's okay. You could take a couple days to watch this if you need to, but if you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out to me. If not, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.